The weekend culminated in a screening event where the buddy teams presented the videos they produced to friends and family.
The idea that at the end of the workshop, the kids are going to present their work is a key thing. Your work that you labored over is now being presented to an audience, and presenting your work to an audience makes it real. And that requirement is really essential to owning your work, number one. And two, the thing is that it helps kids become more confident.
You have a question?
Watch the videos on the WGCU Public Media YouTube channel. Learn more at
the introduction of the project, and then the other videos, the actual kids sharing their stories. So if you guys can go to YouTube down, look at those as well. But we're really excited. That's just the promo we did for television to send folks to YouTube. And we plan on doing another digital storytelling this fall. So I just wanted to share that with everybody because we're so excited about this project.
I'm so glad you did, Ann, and you're right. I mean, it's spot on because you've got you telling that story, having folks that are involved, their voices, sharing why it's important to them.
Yep.
And
we
it's
also have a couple of videos with Best Buddies and some other organizations. So again, it's education a little bit different down here, but it's it's about this project, but it's still education, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everything that we're doing, it matters. And it matters a whole lot to certain people that you may not even know until you ask them those questions. I mean, we've all on our team have been moved to tears when people come in and we start asking them questions. We had a woman and her two sons that had just moved to Tallahassee that participated in Be My Neighbor Day, and they won our little raffle prize, and they were so excited about it, and they felt so welcomed by the whole Be My Neighbor Day event that Kim and Haley and I were just like, oh my gosh, it was just beautiful. And it's a real shot in the arm for all of us when we hear that too, right? I mean, we get a little weary from doing all this work and feeling like, oh my goodness. But when you hear that, you realize, wow, what an impact we make. And it's fantastic. So I do have a question, and you can write your answers in the chat or just think about it. As we mentioned yesterday, Stephanie Chaveras did do these incredible storytelling workshops with us. And if you're interested, we could see if she's up for doing a virtual workshop with us about storytelling. It was really helpful to go through all of that in the hero's journey and looking like tips for looking for those people and those stories that we can share. So let us know if that sounds good to you. And thanks so much for sharing. That was great, Ian. Just a little reminder that we do have our pinup board. I'm going to quickly click on it just to show you all if you haven't had a chance to explore it. Hopefully you're using your little Post-it notes, but if you hop onto the board, you can create, wait, I think it's this one. Oh, look, we have stuff on here. That's exciting. So yeah, you can just make a little post and you can write on it. You can add photos, all different kinds of things to put on here. So please use it throughout the rest of our conference. Anything you think of before, after, this is going to stay up for us. And it's a great tool for us to build more discussion points.
And it should be, it's in the chat. It's at the very top of the chat, the link to it.
Awesome. All right, action-packed day. This morning is all about the Ready to Learn camps. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, so don't hesitate to say, wait a minute, I need more information. Whoop, Frangelica. I need to put her somewhere else. Cat, help. And of course, she stepped on the button. So here we go. All of the first camps that we're going to talk about are really jumping into the science and engineering. So the goals of those camps, actually, all the camps we have right now. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I think eventually there will be a Molly of Denali camp, but we're not there yet. So everything we're sharing, inquiry and the engineering design process, and providing opportunities for kids to really jump in there and use and sharpen those skills. Every camp is exploring scientific themes. They're generally 4 hours long. You can modify them. We've taken bits and pieces of days of camps and used them as after-school programs, parent nights, science nights, so they can be, you can use the content however you feel works best with your community. There's lots of visual supports, and the journals and materials are beautiful. You have your boxes. If you have your boxes, those of you that got them, please have them close by because you can be pulling out these things as we're discussing them. Again, it all comes back to the science, inquiry, and engineering design processes. We actually made a huge blow up of the circular one that we shared with children and parents often because we wanted them to see that no matter where they started on this flow chart, there's always continuing work to be done around that. I think this has probably been shared out a little bit in other, like I think it was up at NETA and other sessions. Have any of you had a chance to use this chart before or something similar? I see, I'm looking around at faces.
I don't see any hands, so maybe it's a new thing.
I know. Well, we're happy to share this. If you want a slide or if you want to just think about it and contemplate it, we're happy to send it because it really does kind of open your mind, especially when we've done teacher workshops, for them to think about the process of no matter where they are in a lesson, that it can flow through all of these steps. We love our facilitators. Obviously, we all do facilitating, but when we can bring in experts, and we have some on our call right here with us right now. We've got Roshana and we have Misty that are facilitators for us for a lot of these programs because they have an expertise that we may not have. They have a different viewpoint and classroom experience as well. So it just makes for a deep, rich experience when you can pull other folks in to be your facilitators. How many of you are already doing that, that you have teachers that you want to tell us if you feel like it, if you want to share, if you've got some special teachers that you've identified that also serve as facilitators?
Tasha, I do want to jump in here that Janice had a question in the chat that if you use the engineering design process, but where did we find the inquiry process graphic?
We probably received that from one of our Ready to Learn handouts, and we're definitely sharing these presentations, Janice, so you can grab that slide, but if you need us to find it as a JPEG specifically, we can do that for you. We'll make a little note that you're looking for that, and we'll happily share it.
And then Lavinia also shared that stations have made songs and rap songs with those charts to help kids remember the process and the vocabulary behind the process.
I don't know that I've seen any of those rap songs. Lavinia, you'll have to tell us where they are. That's so awesome. So we could share it. Any stories about facilitators that you guys have? Special teachers that have led your workshops or co-led workshops with you?
Well, I was in education in Alachua County for 37 years, and I was a classroom teacher and a curriculum specialist. So I was very fortunate to have that background myself. But as we've gone forward with teaching teachers about PBS, learning media, and things of that nature, I've been lucky that we do have teacher friends of mine who were in the classroom who are now teachers on special assignment that I have worked with, because part of their main job responsibility is professional development in underperforming schools. And I've been very fortunate to be able to partner with them to introduce materials and especially things on PBS Learning Media with them. And then they take that forward and do workshops with their other schools as well. So that's been really a wonderful resource that I've had here in my district.
That's great, Mary. Thanks for sharing that. And I know Rashana is going to add some more later. She'll be visiting with everyone at the end of this workshop. But just her reach, we have another facilitator, Felicia Williams. It just really expands our work, and it gives such a validity to it to know that working classroom teachers have embraced the content, just like you've experienced too, Mary. Thanks for sharing. So our facilitator roles, we work closely with Leon County Schools, and it's fantastic. They help us so much with recruitment and following up and logistics. We all work through instruction and modeling, supporting our children and our families. Our staff primarily does the documentation, but because we do research everything, all of our facilitators have a piece in that as well. Of course, classroom teachers are expert at time management, which is so helpful. And when we have several folks that are participating in the camps and programs, which we usually have quite a few just because it's so much fun, and the more individual attention we can give to campers, the better. Establishing things like a creative corner that's sort of a free space where there's a teacher or an assistant helping is always a plus. So we're going to hop into Odd Squad Camp, which is such one of our favorites. This video, this is Felicia Williams. She is a facilitator for us, and she's the math curriculum specialist for the district now. But when we first met Felicia, she was a 4th grade teacher at Sealy Elementary, which is a Title I school. So this was our first one.
They're actually detectives. They are agents for Odd Squad.
51. Odd Squad. Odd Squad.
Nice.
The mission starts with a 15-minute episode of PBS Kids' Odd Squad.
Oh no! So our case today is symmetric owl is taking half of any symmetrical person, place, or thing. First, we're going to do worksheets. Make sure you know what symmetry means. So everybody back to your desk.
Today is the case of the symmetric owl. An owl is coming to search for symmetrical shapes, and he wants to take everything that is symmetrical.
What if I fold it like this instead of down the middle? And fold it in half. Is it still symmetrical?
No.
Half circle and a pentagon? No.
So the students every day have to work to solve a case, and they have a series of activities that follows that case.
The kids move around. They draw.
You're going to partner up with someone, and you're going to make a symmetrical picture.
They spend a few summer hours a day learning math skills. In 2015, WFSU brought Odd Squad and Super White camps to 3 North Florida counties in an effort to combat the dreaded summer lag. WFSU also partnered with Leon County Schools to bring program content to 7 additional camps.
You spend the first couple of months of the school year pretty much reviewing content from the previous year, so it helps when they are doing some type of academic work during the summer.
Odd Squad.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Nice. So with any program that we are doing, it all starts with, first of all, having that great contact with a partnership, and then creating a flyer, the applications, and creating things like material lists and your agendas. Now, those of you that received your boxes, you should have at least one day of the Odd Squad Camp curriculum. Does everyone have their boxes? Those that, I think almost everyone from our stations has a box. But if you want to check through it really fast and find your camp day, just so you can affiliate it with this, what we're talking about now. And has anyone used Odd Squad yet? I'm looking to see if anyone's, oh, Cersei's got her thumbs up.
Well,
Okay.
we Odd Squad, but we don't have the capacity to do these ourselves. So we gave all this content to the Police Athletic League a couple years ago, and they ran the Odd Squad camp in their space with their kids. It was probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
That's great. And that's a wonderful thing, right? When we can hand over our content and then another group just totally takes it on.
Yeah, I mean, it worked the first year. It's difficult. It's finding the right community partner, because while this was a great audience to serve, they had a lot of turnover in the people working there. So it was supposed to work the second year and it didn't. So, you know, but it's finding the right partner. But the first year was great.
And, you know, we certainly find that too. There is a lot of changeover, you know, places like Boys and Girls Club and after school programs, those folks that lead 21st Century, because we've done quite a bit of work with 21st Century in the summers. And it seems like every year, and even during the course of the summer or the year, there's turnover. So it is like always building new relationships and trying out these things with whoever's a willing partner. I challenge you all right now to look at this sheet and figure out your agent ID number, because in a minute I'm going to switch screens and Haley is going to walk us through virtual Odd Squad. Let me know when you have your agent numbers. And those of you that have your badges, you can go ahead and write your agent number on your badge.
Okay, so I just did it for a workshop, for a teacher workshop, and I have my actual badge I put on there.
That's great.
I'm official. I've got my case right here. It's all good.
Oh.
And actually, we did symmetrical owl too, so it was hilarious. So when you said that, I'm like, hey, I just did that.
You did.
It was, the teachers had so much fun creating their badge number. It was like, so they kept asking, what do you do if you have kids who have the different names or they have the same name? I'm like, oh, you know, there's always the last letter of the initial so there's a little forethought that goes into it. But, you know, they were like, we can figure this out. It's all good. They loved it.
It's so cute. And we have the kids do this their first day of camp. So immediately they start feeling like agents. And you can see from that video, that one little one that's like, Agent 51. They're just so excited. And we tried during our camps too to add the, you know, agent, and I'm Tasha. So it's like, Haley, Hannah. So it's that whole Odd Squad concept reinforced. So cute.
And did you guys have, like, I saw that the kids had the white, like, lab coats things. Is that something that you got through the funding when you did the Ready to Learn?
Well, I mean,
or is it in your repertoire?
It's in our repertoire because we have been generously funded through Leon County Schools to offer these experiences.
Okay.
And Oriental Trading has kids costume lab coats, and that's what we did. So cute.
They are like the bomb. Yes.
It's one of our most favorite camps because it's not very material intensive. You do so much with recycled things. And then those little touches like having the badges that they can make out of paper like Janice's. It's just easy to do. All right. Seems like everyone had a chance to do their Odd Squad badge. So I just want to show you, this was a screenshot we took just the other week for doing virtual Odd Squad. And this is their robot day. So sweet. And it was so much fun. Haley, you ready to take it away?
Yes, yes, thank you, Tasha, for that send off. If you want to unshare your screen so I can share mine. So let me get this ready for you all.
Haley's in Odd Squad headquarters, I see.
Yes.
Reporting in live.
I quickly changed my location. So virtual camp. So we had a whole summer planned. We were ready to go. We had camps set up. We knew we were going to do an Odd Squad camp, and then of course the pandemic hit. And Tasha, ever the fearless leader, was like, "We can do this virtually," and I was like, "This is insane." But we did it. We did our first one last week. We did a Monday through Friday camp for 2 different groups, just an hour long. So we would send them on their way to do their mission, and then we'd go through it the next day. And what I'm going to do right now is lead you through a very quick, condensed version of the last day of camp. So a few things to note leading up to our virtual camp, which I didn't put on the slide, but was number 1, calm all anxieties and know that we're going to get through it together, because I was very nervous about this, but it ended up being great. So first thing we had to do, we had to coordinate with Leon County Schools to even get approval that we could do this virtually, and then give them updated funding requests, and then have them help us with recruiting students. So we have a good partner over there with Leon County Schools who helped send it out to their school listserv, so that we could recruit students. We wanted to cap the camps at 10 per group because, again, we've never done a virtual camp. We didn't know how what the response would be. So this one we capped at 10 per group, and we got 9 in each group. So that worked out pretty well. Our other camp that we're having later in July, I did not catch it in time, so we have like 15 per group, and then it filled up and we had to close it. So it was very popular. So of course we had to create flyers and a Google form sign-up sheets, and we collected addresses in the Google form, which I'll get to in just a second. And then we together, me being brand new, I have not done this camp at all before, so Hannah was so great at helping review the camp materials because she did them in person previously, and helped us decide which would be best to do virtually. So we kind of had to whittle the programs down. It's a 5-day camp otherwise, or the materials a lot for 5 days with 2 cases per day. So you could do a half day, you could do a full day. We figured out how to get it down to 1 per day to deliver the material in an hour, and then repeat it the next day. And had to make sure it was feasible to do at home, because as you saw in the video, the kids were very interactive with each other. They did a lot of teamwork. It was very collaborative. Obviously, we couldn't do that with everybody at home. The next thing, we had to pack and physically deliver the camp backpacks with all of their case files, materials, tools that they would need to complete these activities at home. So we packed backpacks that had each individual day labeled with all the things that they would need in it for that day. We had a little bucket that had tape and markers and scissors and a pencil in it. We gave everybody a silly straw because we happen to have just enough silly straws at the station that we could give that to everybody. And then we split it all up, and we drove and delivered them to all of their houses, and left them at the front door, or if they caught us when we pulled up, handed them off. Of course, we wore masks. And then of course we had kept up with parent communications via email.
And
so,
we packed snacks too. The snacks are very popular. And juice boxes.
Yes, and again, we couldn't have done that without the funding from Leon County Schools. So that was just an extra bonus. So let's jump into our last final day of Odd Squad camp. So we've gone through this 3 days of camp. This is our final day. And I will try and condense this as best I can. So what we would do each day is kind of talk about what the day was going to be like, because I wasn't sure if parents would be on with them or not, if parents had an idea of how the camp would go, if they thought everything would be done during the virtual part, or if there would be parts to do later, which is pretty much how it ended up, that we had parts to do later. So we would do an activity to get to know each other. We'd review the case from the day before. We'd receive a new case. We'd watch an Odd Squad clip. We would practice. So we'd do observation and problem solving time. Then we'd review it and then they'd complete the case at home, and then specifically today being the last day of camp, so they graduated on squad camp and became an agent. So of course, this is part of day one of the camp, is talking about what makes a good agent, which is basically laying out the baseline of how to be respectful and be in a camp with other kids. So the main one that we had to drive home is being respectful when other agents are talking when we're in this virtual space. So lots of listening ears, observant eyes. Oh, and again, the kids came up with this too. So we talked about it on the first day. We made this list, and then I referred back to it each day. They had to raise their hand, or they had to use the chat. And for being rising kindergarten through second graders, they were actually decently tech savvy, so they got all of this stuff. Oh, and I forgot to add, we had to use Microsoft Teams as our platform because Leon County Schools requested that. That was the platform they used for virtual learning after the pandemic started during the school year, so they asked that we had to use that. I can talk more about that later. But generally, I think because the kids were used to virtual learning already, they understood how to use the functionality of these different things within Teams. So then we would do an agent roll call, and then we would have some sort of agent question as kind of an icebreaker. On the last day we talked about what's the oddest dream you've ever had. So we would talk, each day, each question had something odd to do with it. Of course, on this last day, everyone had just like a scary nightmare to talk about, and I felt really bad because some kids were like, I don't want to talk about it. So a couple kids had some like funny dreams to talk about, but we also
we had to rein it in a little bit.
Yes. Yes, especially during camp 2 with Hannah. Yeah, we had a lot of kids that were just like, I had this nightmare and it was scary and knives and guns, and it was just like, oh, okay, maybe this wasn't the best
odd
question.
Dreams. Some of the other prompts that were so good. There was what's the oddest animal you've ever seen? Mm-hmm. What's the oddest food you've ever had? I'm trying to think what the other odd thing was.
I already forgot.
And just like, what's the oddest thing you saw this morning? You know, what did you see last night that was odd? Or yeah.
Sort of yes. Thing. Thank you, because I already forgot. It was a week ago. So that, yeah, then we'd all chat about that and have a good laugh. And then we jump right into reviewing the case of the day before. So the day before, we had to talk about place value. And my background is in art education and museum education. So when I learned that I would be teaching a math camp, I was like, I don't know. I've never taught math before, but it ended up being a lot of fun. So we were talking about place value. And so Odd Todd is a character on Odd Squad, and he had a flipper that would flip the number. So if you had the number 15, he'd flip the 5 and the 1, and then it'd be 51. So we had to talk about that. And their task was that they had to make place value robots out of construction paper to stop him. And then we all looked at each other's robots, and then we had to decide what the place value was. So on each of my robots, there are different squares, and they all represent different place values. So the big square is hundreds, the strips are tens, and the little squares are ones. So this robot was 164, is worth 164. I made mine digitally because I didn't have any construction paper to do it with at my house. And you saw in the screenshot that Tasha shared, they were all holding their robots up. So we could look at that again later. So yes, we would review this, and then we'd congratulate them for closing the case. But of course, there's always more to go. And then we would jump into an Odd Squad episode, in which I don't know that we quite have a lot of time to watch this, but didn't jump ahead. This one is pretty cute because if you haven't watched Odd Squad, Miss O is the leader of the Odd Squad, and it's her reminiscing of back in 1983 when she became Miss O. So we'll just watch a little clip of that if you haven't seen this episode. Very cute.
It's 1983.
Wait, how old are you?
You want to hear the story or not?
Story.
The year was 1983. Odd Squad looked a little bit different back in the 1980s. Our phones were big and our hair was even bigger. My partner was Agent O'Donoghue.
Just a minute, please, sir. Hey, Oprah, you got a second?
What's the hat?
The problem is my sweater. Every time I try and take it off, it just keeps going and going and going.
That is odd. Not to worry, sir. We can use our sweater take-offinator.
Too bad. It's a pretty choice sweater.
You think?
Oh yeah, totally tubular.
You're right. Thanks, Odd Squad.
Oprah! O'Donoghue! In my office! Like, now! Right away, Ms. O. What's the problem, Ms. O? O'Donoghue, tuck in your shirt. And that's not our shirt.
Hey, don't you like it when I bring you flowers?
Ms. O, you should relax.
Yeah, try to get a pet fish, all swimmy and fishy-like.
I don't have time for fish. Too much oddness. Speaking of which, something totally odd has happened. This is the medium-sized ball of gum in the town museum. Except this morning, someone stole it. Oh yeah, that just happened. Luckily, we have a clue. Well, what are you waiting for? Totally go. I'm getting too young for this.
Your precious ball of gum has been stolen. But never fear, the patternista will tell you where to go find it. Simply figure out the next sound out of my mouth. Patternista.
The next thing out of her mouth, it was just a bunch of noises.
I think it's time for a trip to
the math room.
Oh, yeah.
What's totally up, agents?
Math room, play back the patternista's noises.
She said figure out the next noise. How are we supposed to do that?
Wait, she's called the patternista. Maybe.
I'll go ahead and pause it there because we don't have all day to watch this. But they, the rest of the episode, they break down the patterns, and Agent Oprah figures it out, and then finds out that the patternista was actually the original Miss O all along, and she decides to give Agent Oprah her position because she's retiring. And that's how Miss O becomes Miss O that we know today. But it's very fun. It's cute because there's all these 80s references that the kids nowadays would have absolutely no idea what they are unless they talk to their parents about them. So it's a lot of fun. So we would watch the episode. Normally, in person, we would pause and co-view, and I would ask questions. However, we did have some technical issues for a lot of kids that if I paused it, it would make their screen freeze. So we would end up just watching it all the way through and talking about it after. So we would have the incoming case, and this is part of the facilitators case files to read. So I know it's a lot of words, so I would read it out loud theatrically for the kids. It's basically saying, I need you all to figure out how to become a patternista. So we're all going to practice making patterns and then becoming code cracking agents. So this is where we would review who's the patternista. We learned how Agent Oprah became Miss O, and she solved the previous Miss O from the patternista, of course. Then we learned that she was the patternista herself. How did she do it? So then we talk about patterns and cracking codes. Then we would go over vocabulary. What is a pattern? I would get some answers from the audience. And then how can we make a pattern? And then we'd discuss different patterns we'd find decoratively in nature. We talk a little bit about tessellations. We'd also talk about why do animals need patterns, so we'd tie some science in there. And then I would test them on their pattern making skills. So the first one was with dot, del, and D. So I'd go through these carefully. So I'd say, like, here's D, here's del, here's dot. Who do you think is next? And then we'd talk about, okay, who's next? Well, okay, it was dot. So who do you think would come after dot? And then I have del, and then we have D. So we've got a pattern of D, del, dot, dot, del, D. And then we broke it down into numbers, which is what they do in the video. I cut it off right before that. So it's a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, and then we talk about what comes right after D. And this one even tripped me up. I was like, oh, it'd be del, and then we all discussed it. And it'd be D again, because it'd be 1, 2, 3 right after that. So we go through several versions of this. So I also did one with sound, in which we might have a little bit of time so I can test you and see if you can also get this pattern. Let me turn up the sound on this, and let's listen. So we'd listen to all those, and then I played them again. And it would throw them off. They'd be like, what? I don't know. So then we talk about breaking it down into numbers again. So we would have the first sound. Oh, yes. So we were talking about which one's this? It wiggles. Then let's label each sound with a number. So that is first sound, number 1. And then is the second sound the same or different than the first? And we talk about that. That's a different sound. So that's sound number 2. Let's see what the next one is. So did that sound repeat, or is it the same as one that has, or is it a different sound than we've already heard? It's the same as number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah. And
we can all participate, everyone.
Yeah.
This is fun stuff.
If you want to shout in with the patterns. So I'll play that one again. Did we hear that sound before? Number 2. Let's hear the next one. Anybody want to tell us if we've heard that one yet? We have not.
I don't think we have.
Now number 3. And then we've got number 1, number 2, number 1. So when we break it down into patterns, even though it's a sound pattern, we can also visually see that. So which one would come next? It's number 2. But what comes after that one is number 3. So the pattern is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then we also went through some visual ones. So this one really stumped them, which was a lot of fun. Does anybody see what the pattern is with this one? This line of images.
I'm not going to answer again. I did this camp. I know it.
Is it lines of symmetry?
No.
That's an interesting guess.
Yeah, but I like, yeah, that was like a very great guess. That sounded like Roshana. I can't see anybody, but it sounded like Roshana.
It's Roshana.
It did.
Yeah, it's actually even a little simpler.
Oh, wait, Haley, Pam was gonna, I think Pam was gonna give us an answer.
Yes, my brain is working on this very hard. It's maybe the shading,
Yes, that is exactly what it is. So it's actually random images that have nothing to do with each other, but it's 2 outline, 2 filled in, 2 outline, 2 filled in. So yes, it's the shading. So once they got that, then they were like so excited, but hearing the reactions of like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. So I had to talk them through, let's use our observation eyes. Maybe the images don't have anything to do with each other. Maybe they do, but what do we notice about the images? What do we observe?
And I have to hop in. Oh, go ahead, Hannah.
I was going to say Janice gets points for that too. She sent the answer into chat.
Oh, great.
And she has a question for you too, Haley, at some point.
Okay.
In the chat, yeah.
It was really important to stump the kids because we heard a lot of, oh, this is easy from some of the other cases. We actually had some agents that had done the in-person Odd Squad camp. So it was just genius for Haley to figure out these things because those kids really had to think. And it was awesome to see their little faces like, oh my gosh, trying to figure it out.
And also, I forgot to add that they're mostly kids in the gifted program as well. So they're just super smart kiddos to begin with. So it was an extra challenge for me to, one, learn how to teach math stuff and not know what the level of math understanding and development is for this age group to begin with, and then also have to teach it to gifted kids. So it was a great challenge for me. So I'll try and wrap this up here shortly, and then I can answer some questions. So it also started to do patterns that had blanks. So again, this was also a challenge for me to figure out how to make the pattern, and then how to talk about filling in the pattern when there are blanks. So we'd look at context clues and discuss together, okay, what comes next? What comes next? So we see over here after a button, there's a ball of yarn. Oh, so there's a ball of yarn after this button. And then we see that there are 2 balls of yarn and a needle. So this one has a needle. But now we're missing another piece of the pattern. What do you think goes here? A button. And then we'd go through that. And they were just like so excited to solve this together. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the issues with that. But for these parts, we just had them unmute themselves and just shout out the answers. Because when in presenter mode, I couldn't see them, and Hannah or Tasha, depending on which group, were in the background keeping an eye on that to help let me know when people had answers, but for these, we just let them go with it. So this one, again, had even more blanks, and so we actually had to work from right to left a little bit to fill in even the first one. So I think I started here, or I pointed out that there are 3 yellow acorns, there are 3 blue acorns. One of the acorns is facing another direction. And then I think I pointed out right here that there is a blue and yellow beside each other. So what do you think is beside this yellow? And then we kind of filled it in from there, but it did fill in from left to right. Because I didn't actually, when I put it together, I didn't really think about the problem solving part of it. So I had to act on the job. So we'd fill that in and then go to the next one. So by this point, we'd usually have only about 10 minutes left. And so we would tell them, we're trusting you to complete this case at home, and the mission for the rest of the day is to create your own pattern puzzles and challenge someone in your home to solve them. So in person, they would make these patterns and they'd trade with somebody, trade with another agent in the in-person camp to challenge them, and then they'd rotate between different challenges. But of course, they can't quite do that. So we'd have them pull out their day 4 case file. It had the Patternista odd pattern sheet, which looked like this, and then we go through the steps. So we'd use our scratch sheets of paper to practice making patterns. They could draw them with a pencil or marker, and we also include dot stickers in their care package or their activity package, so they had to use their dot stickers to make the patterns. And then we talked about once you have a pattern you like, add it to each line, but make sure to take some spots, make them blank in order to make it a challenge. And then ask a sibling or an adult to finish the pattern or ask an adult to make a pattern or a sibling to make a pattern and have the agent finish it, or he could send it to a friend for them to finish, and then fill up each line. And then we'd review, we'd talk about everything we did together, and then we had to really encourage them to take photos so we could get them, but we said to send to Miss O and close the case. And then we had a little word from Miss O.
And now, an official message from Miss O.
If you're seeing this message, you've made it through camp training. You're now an official agent. From all of us here at Odd Squad, congratulations!
Way to win it all for the win! Win it all for the win!
Hey, little dreamer.
I'm not going to go through that whole song because it has been stuck in my head since we watched it last week. So because it basically is just "Win it all for the win" is the chorus, and that's about it. So we graduate, and then congratulations, you're officially an Odd Squad agent. And we were planning to deliver their Odd Squad badge and certificate. Although I was thinking the other day, Tasha, we could probably just mail those things.
You're right. That would probably be a helpful
easier
thing.
Yeah, because driving around
going on.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff. So we're gonna send them a badge, a certificate for finishing. Just some key lessons we learned, and then I'll take some questions. So yes, we absolutely had to reinforce the need to be respectful and listen when others are talking. So we had muting battles is what we ended up calling them. So I would be running it, and Tasha had the first group and Hannah had the second group, and both of them in the two separate groups had issues with at least one kid where we would try and mute them so to limit background noise, but as soon as Tasha or Hannah would mute them, they would immediately unmute themselves for no reason at all.
It was impressive how quick those kiddos were to find a way to be really annoying.
Yes, they were. I think they would just notice it and they'd unmute themselves. But the problem we found with the virtual camps is parents didn't care that their kids were on something and that they were making noise that would then feed through the microphone in the computer and make all the background noise that was going on. So we'd have to keep muting the kids because there'd be like a kid in the kitchen and their parent was making breakfast or lunch and clanging around and talking to their other parent or talking to the siblings. Or the kid themselves would just be talking to their parent and not realize that they're not muted. Or they'd be talking to their sibling, or they'd be like shuffling around with all this stuff. So we had to keep continuously muting them.
Which is difficult and a challenge because we don't want to discourage their voices, right, and their ability to kind of contribute their thoughts. So it's a balance, yeah.
And it was tricky because the day, I think it was the second day, we really tried to enforce, like, we're going to mute you. And then our participation, our vocal participation went down just a little bit, even though they understood that they were muted and could unmute themselves. So that was it was something to think about. One thing that I learned it's really important to compress the PowerPoint file in order to optimize the playback. So on one of the days I had forgotten to compress it, or I didn't realize that compressing it made a difference, and so the videos wouldn't play back. Another important thing was just learning to download and embed the videos versus linking the videos. So we would download them from the PBS Learning Media site or from the box files that we have access to through PBS. And then something that we've learned and are doing right now is that at least two people are necessary to run any virtual program. So there has to be a person to lead, and there has to be a person on the backside to answer questions, to flag for clarity, or let me know, or let whoever knows leading it, like, we can't hear you, or the video's not playing right. Because when you're leading it, you have too many other things going on for you to also be trying to mute and unmute kids and answer their questions in the chat and also lead the program for all the other kids. Another thing we noted was not all parents stayed with their kids. So sometimes technical issues were hard to solve. So some parents literally set their kids up and walked away and did whatever they were doing, which was fine. I think we expected a little bit more of like hovering parents or nearby parents, which we had a few of those too, but we also had kids that, I think one kid had a little headset on, and at some point he was like, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. And he just kept on muting himself to tell us he couldn't hear us. And we didn't know what was wrong on his computers. And so we tried to encourage him to log out and log back in, to check what his headphones jack would do if he like replugged it in, to type in the chat. And since he couldn't hear us, he didn't know what to do. So he just wandered off. So we just like watched him playing in the background till we were done. But we felt bad about that because there was no way for us to help him. And there was also a couple kids that kept freezing on their end. But it was only like, it would only be one kid. So it had to have been their computer, their internet connection at that time. And again, there was nothing that we could do about it. And if their parent wasn't there to help problem solve it, they would just get really frustrated. Most of the time that was solved by asking them to sign out and sign back in. So we had to send up a lot of follow-up emails to parents, and just saying like, this is what we did today. Please make sure you can help your kids with that.
And we did anticipate that. There was a parent file, like an agent parent file. So they had the lesson plans and they had all the materials. So if there was a mishap during the hour that we're with them, those parents could take it out and they could do it from start to finish.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Tasha. Yeah, so we gave them the facilitator guides so that they could follow up, and also led them to the PBS Learning Media where they could find them online. But the main thing was we found that our campers were absolutely starved for interaction and time to play and time to learn. So they were so enthusiastic. They were happy to participate. We kept giving lots of encouragement for parents to take and share photos of campers in action. So we've got a couple of those photos, and then we were able to share them online. And we also wanted to share that we give this camp, I give it a 4 out of 5 star rating, turning it into a virtual camp. That it was fairly easy to translate. There was just legwork that had to be done ahead of time, but otherwise I think it was pretty successful. So that brings me to the end. And then I just want to know, are there any questions that I can answer really quick? And then I know we need to keep moving.
I believe Janice had a question about doing prep work for the younger kids beforehand with the materials, in terms of cutting and I think things like that. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you like, for example, the little guys, if you were doing some cutting of materials like the symmetry, the shapes for the symmetry and stuff like that, especially because if you have like kindergartners and, you know, if they like snip that shape, there goes the whole activity. Right. So did you provide some of that for the younger group, and obviously build in prep time for the older kids? I know it takes time, but you know, there's only 10 kids in like so many shapes. So I think certain things may be helpful to prep ahead of time. I was just curious.
Yeah, we didn't pre-cut anything. We gave them their sheets in full. Most of the sheets that we gave them, so we did not do the symmetry one in person. So the main sheets that they had to cut out were actually bigger shapes. And again, we encouraged and hoped that parents would help with things like that for those, you know, rising kindergartners that may not have the scissor and motor skills yet to work on those. But I think the trickiest one was the one that we just covered, the robot one, where they had like this full sheet of tiny little squares to cut out. So that might have been tricky for them. But no, we didn't pre-cut anything, though that probably would be something to consider for a future one.
Okay, I was just thinking, how to make it so that it could be, you know, what kind of interactive things we could do ahead of time so that it would facilitate the learning as opposed to actually cutting the stuff out. I was just curious, thinking of, you know, some other kids I've had to put together and stuff like that. So but I guess if you have a smaller number, that definitely makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any other questions I can answer about that? And if not, just put them in the chat and I can also respond to you as well.
I love
thank
Cersei
you all
just changed her name to Agent O'Cersei.
Great. I'm glad to see. Yeah, a couple of you did that. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing
And I want
that.
to say a quick welcome. Layla just joined us. Layla is another fearless PBS Kids leader in there at DC. So hi, Layla. And of course, we have Pam back today. We have Lavanya back and Megan. So glad you guys are here with us. And hop in whenever you think of something to add to this. Can everyone see my virtual Odd Camp Exploring screen again? Okay, good. Hopefully I did it right. There's one way you can do it where it automatically plays things, but so we'll see, hopefully. All right, so there's the robots that Haley was talking about from the screen shot that we took about that. They're so cute. So much like Odd Squad, ScratchJr Camp followed the same way. The ScratchJr Camp was the first one that we piloted back in years 1 and 2 of the camp of Ready to Learn. I think, and Lavanya, you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but this has really morphed more into the family and community learning workshop. She's shaking her head yes. But I still want to show you this because we did use and we continue to use Scratch a lot. When we get to Roshana's part, I'll be very eager to talk to her about this because I know we're all challenged with the technology that we have. We do have 10 iPads at the station, so we can take those iPads and we do lots of programs with them, with families, with our family community learning workshops, and of course with the camps because they're designed to be very collaborative. Let's hop in and show you this camp just so you can see some different components about it.
Think computer programming is hard? WFSU makes it fun and easy. The PBS Ready to Learn project and WFSU connects young students to coding with the PBS Kids ScratchJr Camp. Using the free app, we show kids how to design interactive stories and games with their favorite PBS characters.
No, we had to do one of those little paper things. Oh, yeah?
Your child will learn to code and code to learn.
You have these blocks, connect them like a sequence, and then the actual characters that you made actually walk across the screen.
Engage their imagination and skills at wfsu.org/ScratchJr.
So I'm curious, do any of you have access to iPads or you have the PBS Kids Play pads? I can't really see everybody, so I saw.
We have a mobile lab that we have about, well, it varies, around 10 iPads that we take with us to events and workshops and just however we need to use them.
Okay, Gail, have you used this PBS Kids ScratchJr on them yet?
No, we haven't done ScratchJr on those yet.
Okay.
No.
It was one thing, like in using Scratch so much during years 1 and 2 of the grant, we learned an awful lot, and we really, through professional development, especially with our early child care providers, we saw a lot of paradigm shifting about using technology with young children. They kind of understood that it was an important tool that they could use if they understood how to use it better. And that was a real exciting leap to make, because I know all of us, especially those of us that have been doing this work for, the past 10, 15 years, we can get a lot of pushback about screens. And having our early childcare providers realize, wow, this is a tool. I see that this is a tool. This is not just a babysitting thing or just kids spacing out and playing games that aren't useful. When they're using it with their families, it's a whole other view on that. And using PBS Kids ScratchJr made that transition for some folks that I thought we were never going to get on board, and they did. So just like with Odd Squad Camp, we had flyers that went out. We had partnerships, a wonderful sponsorship from Envision Credit Union. I didn't have enough facilitator guides to send to everybody, but I believe everyone has the journals. So if you look in your box, you should have a ScratchJr little wipe off screen and some sort of a guidebook. I think you have flashcards as well. We'll jump into ScratchJr a little bit more in our afternoon session, but we're going to move to Sensational Science Camp.
This camp is Ref Refman's Sensational Science Camp. It's all about the engineering design process and science.
Oops.
This camp is Ref Refman's Sensational Science Camp. It's all about the engineering design process and science inquiry. Every component of Sensational Science Camp is intentional. So we pick an episode and we pair it with activities, and we pair it with another piece of PBS Kids digital content that all makes this package for learning.
Oh, Ruffman, show!
We started with a clip from Ruff Ruffman. He has some kind of problem, and the show is great because kids actually help Ruff solve these problems.
I need something to keep him dry in the rain so we can get out for that walk. I need to make a raincoat out of some kind of material I can find in this house. Can you test different materials and tell me what to use?
For sure! Yeah!
Ruff Ruffman's a perfect kicking off point for those topics.
This relates to everything that we're doing in this camp, and this relates to what we're doing today.
We separate out into groups. Each person in each group has a different role that they're fulfilling for that project.
We're gonna use this piece. It's to protect from the sun, so he won't get too hot on his head.
It's just about asking questions and testing things and improving on them, and then asking more questions about that. And you're a scientist when you do that.
There you go. Extra reinforcement.
After we do our projects, we all refer back to our journals and we talk about what we noticed and what we investigated and what our results were like, and we compare and we share.
We put this see-through box so rain does not get on her face.
Every sensational science camp that we do, there's always something new that happens.
So yay. Such a great camp. Hannah, are you ready to? It is so fun.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I love this camp, if you couldn't tell by how I was talking about it in that video. It's so fun, so action-packed, and yeah, so with this slide, similarly to Odd Squad and every other camp we do, we have a flyer, agendas and registration forms, and that sort of run-of-the-mill registration stuff. And similar to Odd Squad, I'll let you know when to advance the slides, Sasha. I'll cue you up.
Okay.
But you're good. You're good. That's a good, good place to be. So similar to Odd Squad, Be the Agent Camp, Ref Refman Sensational Science is really fantastic at incorporating the show's content into the curriculum. And I feel like with both these camps, Odd Squad and Ref Refman, that's really sort of the ready to learn, like, superpower secret sauce that when it works well, it just works so well. It's really magic. The kids get so excited and they love these characters. And with Ref Refman specifically, they get to see kids that look just like them solving these problems and working with Ref and helping them out in real time, which is just really exciting for them to see. So each day of camp is focused on one of these different topics, mixtures, materials, friction, structures, and then the last day is a sort of wrap-up finale. So they spend the full day of each of these days exploring that main idea sort of through the lens of, like, crazy engineering challenges. Problems they're tasked with solving are literally pulled right out of the show. And so Ref, who some of you might know more from Fetch, which was the previous long form show that PBS Kids had with him, just gets himself into all kinds of crazy situations And the kids have to solve them using, slide please. Next slide. The engineering design process. Of course, going back to this awesome graphic. So you'll find a copy of this in your journals. I think, Tasha, we sent those out, I believe, the camp journals. Yeah.
Yep, we did.
So that's right there in your journal. And during the camp, we had it displayed up on a huge projector screen in the studio. You might have noticed in that video. Or if we're in a classroom, we have it sort of printed up and enlarged, and we pin it up somewhere in the classroom so it's always front and center and ready to be referred to. So your next slide, please. So we thought it'd be fun to dive into one of the days of Rough Camp, just like we did with Odd Squad. And I picked the day that you guys saw a bit of in that video earlier, which is one of my favorites. It's all about materials and properties. So this is the at a glance for Material World Day. So each day is organized in the same way. We watch the episode and then we play with some media that ties in directly to that clip. And then we talk about vocab. Each day there's different keywords that we focus on. And then we kind of brainstorm in groups. It's all super collaborative. And the kids use their journals to kind of plan out their ideas and draw them and write out their game plan. And then we sort of just let them loose and see what they come up with. And it's always so different. Like, kids just bring so much creativity to these projects, and they test drive them and then they improve on them. And we talk about how that's really being a scientist, is sort of testing, improving, asking questions, just like that engineering design process, just like that inquiry process. And so next slide, please. So in today's episode, Ruff somehow comes across a rhino who he decides to bring home and make his pet. But he realizes that his roommate Blossom, who is the black cat that you saw earlier on an earlier slide, is not going to be thrilled about living with a rhino. Can't imagine why. So his solution is to come up with a disguise for this massive rhino, who he affectionately names Fluff. And so he decides to sew 100 mop heads together to make this disguise. And next slide. Turn him into a Hungarian herding dog called a Puli. So he makes this massive costume of mops and then promptly takes Fluff for a walk, and of course it immediately downpours. I know we're all familiar with that scenario in Florida. And he realizes that mop heads are in fact absorbent. So he needs his friends to help him design a rhino-sized raincoat. And that's the challenge that the kids, the real life kids, kind of get to work on. And they test a dishcloth and a sheet of cardboard, and they decide that they need something that repels water here, or something that's waterproof. Those are two key words to solve this problem. So we watch the clip, we ask a lot of questions, we stop it, restart it, follow-up questions at the end about what kinds of things they think, would best solve this predicament that Ruff has found himself in. And then next slide, we play a game on our iPads. The game for this day, or one of the options, there's a few different options for each day. Dress That Rhino is the game that we played with this particular day. So you choose a scenario and decide what kind of material is appropriate to then use a paintbrush and sort of paint all over Fluff. So in this particular scenario, Ruff is bringing Fluff to a garden party, and he wants something that grows. He wants to wear something that grows. So which of these materials do you think we should use to dress that rhino? Looks like we have a grocery bag, we have some kind of a wrench, and we have a leaf. Leaf, yep, you got it, brilliant. So next slide. So we paint Fluff with the leaf and we decide, does it grow? Yes, it grows. Next slide, you see Blossom there. And then we put it into a chart, and there's a lot of charting and tables and things like that in our journals throughout the week. And so then after we spent that time sort of digging into the media for the day, we group up, let the kids loose, and they kind of get to just explore the vast array and myriad of materials that we've thrown at them to create their own outfits. So they have to
all
sort
recycled
of
materials that we hoard in mass.
So lots of tissue boxes, egg cartons, you know,
Paper towel
old
rolls,
tablecloths, plastic tablecloths that have marker and paint all over them, and
bubble
that sort
wrap.
of thing. Yeah. Bubble wrap's always a hit. And so they talk amongst themselves and decide who's going to be the person to actually don this costume. Poor unfortunate soul. And then we always have a list of different jobs that the kids can choose from to sort of help with the group work and make sure everybody in that group feels like they have their own role to fulfill, an important job to do. And then, yeah, so next slide, sorry. So then we challenge them to, again, decide amongst themselves what challenge they want to take. So you've got all the different elements. And then they just get to work and they use tape and, you know, string and any kind of things that we have lying around in our craft room to kind of create these incredible outfits that are always so different. So you can go to the next slide. So these were 3 of the outfits that they created for this camp, and I thought it would be fun to see if you guys could guess which challenge each of these groups took on. If you really had your listening ears on during the video, you might have picked up on the answer to a few of them. But so what do you think was that first challenge, the element that they were trying to protect their friend from? Water? Yep. So you see that she's got a plastic tablecloth on, and she has some sort of umbrella, parasol made out of a pool noodle. And she's got that like plastic carton over her face to protect from the rain. So we'll talk about all of the different sort of properties of these materials and why they were appropriate for that specific challenge. And then what's the middle one there? I always think he looks like Yoda.
Like a little bag lady.
Cold. Yep, you got it. He's got the someone knitted that beautiful, it looks like crochet hood for him. I don't know where that one came from. And he's got some random materials that look pretty warm. And then what's that last one? Any guesses? Heat. Yeah, so he's got reflective material on his head. He's got his sunglasses. It's protecting from the sun, basically. So yeah, exactly. And that's always just so fun. We do a little runway at the end and have them show off their outfits and do a little show and tell after we've tested them and improved on them. So for, you know, that first one there, we'd have spray bottles, and this is always like sometimes the favorite part is they get to test them out and use spray bottles, and we had flashlights for testing the reflection on the sun, protection from that.
For the wind.
And fans for the wind, and yeah. So
didn't we do golf ball? We did like ping pong balls for sleet or something.
Mm-hmm.
That was cute too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one day of the camp. The other days are obviously different. They do all sorts of collaborative projects like this though each day. We haven't tried this one virtually. I know there was a question about that, and I haven't done this camp in about a year, so it's not totally fresh for me, but I feel like so much of the excitement and the power about this camp is that group work aspect and the collaboration, that I think it would be trickier to sort of get the same impact out of a virtual camp than something like Odd Squad. But I feel like there are aspects of the curriculum that you could adapt in a way that would work. We just haven't tested that out.
Right,
yet.
Especially with doing a family community learning workshop, because if the whole family is willing to be a part of this, then that could be a lot of collaborative fun.
Yeah, definitely with families. Yeah, for sure. As a family community learning workshop, I think, agreed, Misty. I think they can definitely tackle these, and if you had siblings. Yeah, so that's for freshmen.
It's so
it's a
much
really
fun.
Sweet camp. So much fun.
Oh, I got ahead of myself. So there is a Ready, Jet, Go Space Camp as well. We are running out of time, though. We're already quite a bit over. I hope you guys are okay with that, and that Misty is okay with pushing hers up a little bit. I see her shaking her head. So that's great. Let me show you the video with Ready, Jet, Go quickly and the materials. And we'll turn it over to
This
Roshana.
is our Ready, Jet, Go pilot camp. It's one of our newest shows on PBS Kids, and it focuses on space exploration and the different things that go along with that. Mars rovers, constellations, spacesuits, and the engineering process that goes along with that.
Right now we're building a rocket. The first time we made the rocket, we tested it and it didn't really go high, but then we added these like small yellow feathers on it, and it went higher than before what we did.
So we have brain breaks in between projects so that they can kind of get a bit of their energy out in between really intense thinking and intense teamwork.
We put confetti, and when we launched it, confetti spilled everywhere.
Just another amazingly fun camp, really hands-on. We just piloted last year, and you saw Roshana was our facilitator. These are some of the supplies that we had. There are the space exploration camp journals that you all have in your boxes, and there's a facilitator's guide that is available that we can share if you all want to try this. And this is what, of course, we needed flyers. You can see Roshana leading the kiddos there. I think they're doing their space pledge in that photo. There's a Space Scout pledge. So adorable. And then there are a set of videos. I want to show you this one quick, lovely video that Sarah did at another station that illustrates one of the activities.
Hi, I'm Sarah Thomas, and today we're going to build a balloon rocket. But first, ask the kids what they think will happen if I let the air out of this balloon. Then show them. Ask what made the balloon move forward. Was it the air inside of the balloon pushing it forward? We're going to use that same push to launch a rocket. Let's build it. We'll work with a balloon, scissors, paper tube, straw, string, and masking tape. First, we're going to lace the string through the paper tube, like this. And then tie the string between two chairs, like this. Then blow up the balloon and tape it to the paper tube. Once that's done, release the balloon and observe what happens. Doesn't always work well the first time. Some common problems to look for. The string might be too loose, or the paper tube might not fit the string well enough, and we should try using a straw instead. Let's make those changes and try again. How far did the balloon travel? Mark the distance with a piece of masking tape. Now it's time for them to ask questions and experiment. What could they do differently that might change how far the balloon rocket goes? So for instance, what if the string was longer? What if it was angled down? Whatever change they decide, have them make a prediction about it and test it. But it doesn't matter if their predictions are right or wrong. What matters is that they learned how to test their prediction. And that's how your kids earn their rocket launcher badge.
So much fun. And you can see it really focuses on the process rather than the product. And it's all of these camps are just amazing. So without further comment from me, I want to introduce you to Roshana Beard. You've met Roshana a few times in some of our videos. She is our PBS Kids Early Learning Champion. Yay! And she is a Ready to Learn facilitator. She's a media specialist at Appalachian Tapestry Magnet School for the Arts. She's the mom of 3. I think you've seen her recent addition in Nathaniel. And she's also a doula. How she manages all these things and does everything so well is just extraordinary. And we're so happy she's on our team. So take it away, Roshana.
Good morning. Still 2 minutes before afternoon on the East Coast, so still good morning. Actually, Tasha, I am now the math coach as of recent, so that kind of has changed, and so I really am more loving Odd Squad. I'm excited about this opportunity today, as well as every single opportunity with PBS Kids. And if you've met my mom, she's even more excited for me than I think I am. And I'm like, if I could scale it, I'm excited to like the 1,000th degree. My mom is beyond that. The notes that I had to share today about my story, we've been talking about stories, which I thought was really funny, is my story, and I had it sectioned off into 3 parts. My story as the mom. To begin, I saw PBS coming to my school, and I was a teacher there, but I saw it as an opportunity to get my son, as you saw yesterday in the video, introduced into the program with Scratch. I had no idea what Scratch was. I just said, okay, any opportunity to get my baby into doing things outside of his comfort zone or just excelling his learning opportunities, I want him to be a part of that. So it started there. Those were my first steps of being interactive with PBS Kids and PBS, the network. Because of course, as a child, I watched Sesame Street and all of those different things, but now I was able to infiltrate the ranks by getting my son interacting with the program. And it just skyrocketed from there. He was the youngest. He was preschool. Everybody else was like 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders, and he was preschool. And he latched on to ScratchJr and has sailed off from there. He has worked with other people to the point where, as an educator, I was like, okay, my son is intrigued by this. Can we also go ahead and make it where everybody has opportunity for ScratchJr? So ScratchJr is on every single iPad in our school. It is automatically dropped onto the iPads. Whether the students know how to use it or not know, we have given them the opportunity to be able to go and play with it. As the media specialist, I gave opportunity for the students to come in and use it and taught them how to have missions, how to create their own stories, because it does help with storytelling, especially with the component of being able to create your own character, your own backgrounds, and being able to take a picture of your face and put your face on the pictures. The kids were enamored by that. So they were able to retell stories using themselves as one of the characters. And so then you fast forward to my nomination for ELC, and where that has actually taken me to being able to work even closer with WFSU, being able to be a facilitator, as well as being able to do professional developments in other areas around the country, and then bringing that back home and facilitating a bridge between primary pre-K education as with the rest of the building, as well as facilitating things between home and school and communicating with parents with different ideas, bringing the things that I've learned from PBS Kids into the classroom and sharing them with parents for them to be able to use as resources at home. PBS Learning Media is like one of my favorite tools in the world. And every time I get a chance, I share. There are videos, there are clips, there are different things, and sharing those with the teachers. And they're like, oh, Beard, I never knew. Or I used PBS Learning Media and it had just the right clip. I was able to do this and it had just the right activity that I needed for my students at that time. And just loving that. So as a mom, just being able to hone in and be able to use these resources, but then as a teacher / mentor teacher, being able to show and share with other teachers the benefits of having PBS Kids and PBS Learning Media as a resource in the classroom, outside of the classroom, when planning, pre-planning, especially during a time of virtual learning, having those clips already at hand, having those resources where you were able to just share on a Google Doc or share to a parent versus trying to figure it out and trying to find something else. It was already there, and it's a plethora of information. If you haven't noticed, I get nervous speaking in front of people, even virtually, so I tend to talk faster. So if there's any questions you have for me, you could put those in the chat. I'm looking at that, but I'm really nervous. And I know that when I did the Odd Squad, which was my first camp that I started doing and facilitating, was I had my sister's face on my phone. I put Mrs. O's face there. And so I would text her and say, hey, I'm about to call you. Or I need you to call me real quick. We're about to do a mission. And they didn't necessarily have to hear her voice. They just had to see that Miss O was calling me, and I would have on my lab coat and my badge. And I'm your facilitator, camp sergeant, and Miss O's calling me. And so they would, shh, it's the real Miss O, it's the Miss O. And my sister would call, and I'd be like, okay, these agents, I think they're ready. You want me to do what? Okay, so I will give them that case. And I actually set up our lab, and it had like a tunnel, and the students had to put their fingers on a keypad so they can get led into the tunnel, and had to go through the tunnel, and then it led into another room, which was actually our training area that we would train in. And then they had to go out of another door because the door would change every day. So they had these different opportunities. And they were really, really excited about doing that. Overall, I have done I've done ScratchJr, I have done Odd Squad, and then last year I got to help, I got to facilitate the Ready Jet Go camp, and oh my goodness, my baby was part of it, so I got to see him do things and see that engineering thought process and inquiry. But to watch the students come together and say, oh, we're building a Mars rover, we're building a rover. How can we do this? Let's change this. Or when they launched their rockets, and the thought process behind that and facilitating that. And I'm really kooky, and like, so we did our pledge every day, and we were like really enthusiastic about it. And so it also helped the students to stay as enthusiastic with it as well. I have been able to sit as a mom through the Molly and Denali camps with Misty, and I still have the iNaturalist app on my phone, and every chance I get, I'm taking pictures of things in a safe manner walking up to trees, bugs, different things, and trying to figure out, oh, what's this? I've even had conversations with other people, and I'm like, oh, that's a Japanese cherry blossom. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, I know because I know, but if you don't believe me, here's this app. So all the parents and teachers on campus now have the iNaturalist app so that they can take pictures of things and say, oh, this isn't poisonous, or to get the kids into that. So that's another app that has been pushed to all the iPads on campus. So when the students are outside doing scientific inquiry and they're looking for a plant and you're talking about the different classes, and all the way up to 5th grade, they are going through and finding that leaf or that bug and then classifying it and then talking about that in the classroom. I feel like I covered all of my 15 minutes really quickly. Are there any questions? No?
I'm getting comments like, you're doing an amazing job and that you're super sneaky about your sister with the whole iPhone thing. That was so clever. And I don't see any more like questions for you, but I think, Roshan, you'll be here with us this afternoon and back again tomorrow too, right?
Yes, I will be here. And and then the picture of me in front of my board is my presentation board for ELC, the Early Learning Champion. Of course, Lavanya, Megan, and Layla, they have seen some of my work that I've done with the station and some of the challenges that they have presented me with and sent me to do some things for them. And it's just been a glorious ride. It's a dream come true to be able to work with PBS Kids, especially when I love my station, WFSU, and all the opportunities they give me, even this opportunity here. And I appreciate everything from you guys. And I love you guys with all my heart.
Well, and we love you right back at you, Roshana. And we are constantly amazed at how creative she is with this. I have to brag on her a little bit more because she was so pregnant. And December came, and of course, December's crazy for teachers. She transformed a part of their media center into this Odd Squad headquarters and had, 200 kiddos became agents that week. So they did all kinds of Odd Squad activities, and they took the pledge, and they, figured all that stuff out. And it's just amazing how she's taken this curriculum and made it her own and made it accessible to her school. Just like with ScratchJr too, so many different things we just say, oh, look, this is new. And Sean's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take this and do something amazing with it. And not only does she do that with those that are close to her, but she inspires everyone around her as well. So yay. We're so happy that you're with us. And no, Cersei, you cannot have Roshana move to Jacksonville.
Come visit. I am willing to come visit.
So we can share her for sure.
The Florida stations can start a program. There you go. You can work
that could be something.
Florida Fellows, Florida something or other.
I wish we could clone her too. That was the next thing Cersei said. Can we clone you? Yeah. So we'll hear more from Roshana, and she'll share out because she's been a part of so many things. We were supposed to have Misty start at noon and grab our lunches. So if everyone's okay with it, we'll grab our lunches, take 15 minutes, and we'll gather back at maybe 12:25. And Misty, will that work for you? I'm seeing where she is. I've got to pull my screen across.
Yes, ma'am. That's totally fine. I just had to unmute myself so you could hear me.
That's great. Thanks, Misty. So everyone take 10, 15 minutes, grab some lunch, take a bathroom break, and stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here soon.
Sounds great.
Thanks, everyone.